Just think before you speak, yeah?
Wow! Right, Ed. Hello and welcome to episode 17 of the First4LCFC Podcast. And it's not been the best of weeks for Leicester City, with two rather disappointing results in 3 days, serving to sow seeds of doubt in certain sections of the Leicester City fan base. Joining me, as always, to assess the last two games and maybe look ahead to how and where Leicester may be able to turn things around are Chris Mosen and Edward Noon. How are you both, gents?
Very well.
Good, thank you.
Good. Very glad you could both join me again. Firstly, we'll talk about the unpredicted loss to Southampton, the one that made a mockery of all three of us in the predictions this week. But as none of us three could actually make the game, we are joined by Amar, who often sends in questions, but on this occasion is here to give his opinion on the game. Amar, thank you for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you guys. Thank you for having me on.
No, it's good to have you on. So listen, as we said, none of us three could make it, but as you were at the game and normally have a fair bit to say on it, we thought that you'd be the right man to ask. So was the result a fair reflection of how the match went, in your opinion?
Yeah, to be honest with you, well, in the build-up to the game, after the cup result with the Villa and just thought we were going to absolutely thrash them, then going into the second half and thinking, okay, like if we can build on this, we should be okay for Southampton. But then I was looking at Southampton and thinking that was always going to be a tough game. I looked at their form. They beat Chelsea away. They got a good result at Wolves. Went to Arsenal. Really should have tore them apart. And, you know, they ever since the 9-0 thrashing, it just seems to be a whole uprisal with the Ralph Hasenhüttl and how he's completely transformed that team. I had them going down. I thought they were gone. And they literally just turned everything around, the whole form. I heard they had some of those players barely made an appearance again after that result. And we got them working and pressing, and they're having a compact shape. And I think we really saw how he's completely transformed that team, because they absolutely dominated us on Saturday.
Let's focus on Leicester City now. So, was it collectively? Did we not turn up, or is there any individual performances that you want to highlight to us in regards to the negatives?
Yeah, if I was, I'll probably do it collectively. To be honest with you, if I was going through every player, it would probably take all night. Yeah, as a collective, I just felt we looked jaded. We didn't look up for it. What really disappointed me was, I think the most, as a Leicester fan, and just sort of knowing that we had that fighting spirit within us, is that we weren't willing to take on physical duels one-on-one. And we just let them keep on winning the first balls in the contest. And that was just simply not good enough. I saw many players out there who weren't, who looked scared. That's just simply not good enough. And I can understand, because of the fixture congestion and the lack of rotation with the team over the winter period, it's been incredibly tough. I think this is what fans don't really seem to get, is that when we won the title and we had that lack of rotation in the sides, we were very reactive. We weren't going out to win the game. We're becoming more proactive now, as we're being a more possession-based side, which takes a lot more energy out of the team. So having a more consistent side throughout the winter period is going to take its toll naturally. And I think, we're going forward in the cup runs with a strong team. I think that's the consequence of affecting our performances in the league.
Well, based on that, Amar, do you think that, given you feel that some more rotation was needed, that maybe you got the selection wrong? Because obviously he rotated a couple in the likes of Tielemans got a rest, but do you feel more players should have got rotated, or was it more, I don't know, the formation, or what about his team? Could he have changed the selection?
I said at the start of the summer, we don't have a deep enough squad to really compete in all three competitions that we're in this season. So with me putting out the strongest side possible, we were never really gonna. didn't really fully believe in the full rotation of players. And I think looking at the cup wins this season against Everton away and I think Newcastle away earlier on in the season, if we didn't put out a strong team, we wouldn't have got this far in the cup. So I think Brendan, with the league and the cup, he did what he could. I feel with the players there, I don't think if it was mass rotation for Southampton on Saturday and it was going to be a complete write-off, it wouldn't have worked anyway.
So, Amar, there's obviously a bit of a gap now between the Southampton game and the Burnley game on the 19th. It's the longest rest Leicester have had for a little while.
Yeah.
So assuming that everyone is fit and refreshed, do you therefore just say, right, we'll put the same team out and go again with a healthier squad almost, or do you think that there needs to be some changes made?
Yeah, I feel there needs to be a couple of changes. I think a lot of people have been hounding out Ben Chilwell recently, and to be honest with you, it has been pretty much this whole season. Looking at him play, I think just the fans were just getting on his back and, just sarcastically cheering him every time he made a successful pass. And that just wasn't, I'm all for constructive criticism at the end of the day and, after the game. But during the game, you got to back your men up for the 90 minutes. It's just not right. And, he's an academy player. He's young. And I feel right now he's just so low on confidence. I think just give him a rest. Just not let him worry about these next few games coming up. Maybe rest him for the next 3. Just have him on the periphery. And if we desperately need a left back, then bring him in.
Just to add some context to any potential criticism of Ben Chilwell, these are the stats. I presume they're correct anyway, but apparently lost possession 36 times, 0 successful crosses, 0 successful long balls, not sure how you meant that, 62% pass accuracy, 3 fouls conceded, and he was at fault for the first goal. Obviously, this comes at an interesting time, though, doesn't it? It's the January transfer window. He has been constantly linked with a reported £60 million move to Chelsea. So, if we're going to have to see a dip in form, obviously it's bad for us, but it could potentially put off potential suitors. But equally, we are looking. Well, apparently, we're maybe not looking at, but we're being offered Luke Shaw as well. So. I mean, what do you think's led to Chilwell's sort of decline in form? Because obviously, he's been cementing his place in the England side of late, and obviously there was always minor criticisms, but why is he suddenly nosedived like this? Do you think?
Yeah, I think multiple things again. I don't know whether there's an underlying issue because I think at the start of the season, if I'm wrong, he did have a hip injury, so he did miss. I remember him missing a couple of games at the start of the season. It might have been like Chelsea away. So I don't know whether that's continuous. But then again, I think you can't really excuse that. It could be the England call-up, and he's just trying to play safe, just making sure that he gets to the Euros tournament, which for me, if that's the case, then that's not on. And he needs to get his priorities straight. And I don't think, I think he's an honest guy, to be honest with you. But yeah, maybe it's the commitment, but also another thing. And I want to get you guys' opinion on this. Basically, under Puel, he was kind of giving the Mourinho treatment that he gave to Luke Shaw. He was just like, because I constantly see it. So where I'm sat in B2. So I pretty much see everything the manager is doing, whether he's like out on the touchline in his box or whether he's speaking to one of the coaches. I see it all. And any sort of incoming substitutions that he's going to make or any sort of tactics that he's going to plan. And what he constantly did with Puel, is that he was just shouting at him, being like, come on, go forward, and just like make him run down that left channel. And in the 18-19 season, under Puel mostly, he was doing that. He was committing forwards. He was constantly running with the ball. And, he was playing really well. And every time that he didn't whip in the ball first time, you could see Puel's frustration. He's just like kind of like all of us right now. He's just like, oh, for God's sake, just whip it in first time. And maybe that could be, you know, the reason why he could have dipped. Maybe Brendan's not giving him some tough luck and thinks he's made it. And maybe Puel was just kind of like, well, hang on a minute. And maybe did Puel see something in Chilwell that none of us did about his commitment, whether that is his technique on how he does things? I'm not sure.
Saying that Brendan Rodgers doesn't give Chilwell as hard a time when he messes up as Puel did, and do we think that that's something that maybe he needs to start doing?
He gave Alan Brazil a run for his money in terms of the longest question ever asked. I appreciate
Okay, yeah, true.
I mean, Chilwell did make his breakthrough under Puel, didn't he? Really, he played before, but he really came on under him. But I think he had played some of his better football early this season. I think when he was playing with the confidence that you talked about and attacking his man, and I think that's where a lot of fans' frustration lies, is especially in the Villa game where he had the ball one-on-one with the right back, but just seemed really hesitant to have a go at him down the line, because we know he's quick enough. And I think I actually do think it's more because of the reaction and the pressure, and I think that because especially around me, it was quite. There's no way he would have been unaware of it. You know, I mean, it was full blown booing at one point.
I heard it from the cops, so yeah, it was. You know, if I heard boos at full time, I heard constant groans and, you know, fans just waving their arms up in the air. So if I saw that from there, then there's, you know, I think players, they do hear a lot, and, you know, whatever you say about acoustics, it does travel around. So,
and I think we've got to remember this is a very, very young team as well, and they're not experienced it sort of in these sort of scenarios. So I think we've got to understand that their form is going to dip at some point, and try and just give them that patience that they need. That's my take on it. I think that we need to give it a longer stretch of games. If we're still in this situation in 5-6 games and we're still playing poorly, then yeah, by all means, we think questions need to be asked then. But for now, I would urge us to be a bit more patient. But that's football fans for you. So very, very much unlikely. Amar, just quickly, just to get your predictions looking forward, because we always like to do that, and more often than not, we're wrong. So maybe you can buck that trend. If you can just give us a score prediction and the scorers for Burnley, and then where you think we will finish come the end of the season.
Ooh, as quickly as I can.
We will hold you to it as well. And
yes. Yeah. Got the time.
You will never be on again if you don't get it exactly right. So,
mate.
Because I will. We will be going to the bookmakers after this.
I've lost a bet from BetBull of about £500 due to Leicester predictions being wrong many times. I just never
join the club, mate.
Yeah, so quite, you know, optimistically as I am, I think Leicester will win. I do believe Brendan is going to have a look at the side and just feel who can be up for the fight and who is willing to put in the hard work just to run the distance and put in players that may not have had an opportunity, like North Brighton, but like a Justin, for example, and just see how they do. I think 3-1. Now, Vardy still looks in form, so I think he'll score. Maybe Ricardo and Maddison. And then obviously Chris Wood will score the wanker. So
I mean, we do have a horrible, horrible knack for letting former players score against us, don't we? It does seem to be a given. Right, so I mean, that'd be a good prediction, and would definitely get us back on track for the season. But obviously, we're over halfway now, counting down to the end of it, as it were. Where do you think Leicester are going to finish come May?
I think we'll do it. I think we'll get top 4. I do feel we may lose out on second to Man City. Like, title's gone. Like, pretty much said that after Liverpool. I was hopeful, but it happens, and at the point. Coming out of the Southampton game, it was nowhere near as bad as the Liverpool game. I wanted to, I was thinking of plans to emigrate the country, so just the amount of abuse I gave to Scousers. So, but I think third. I think this is just a dip, and we just got to ride the storm at the end of the day. I feel like if we get 10 wins, I think that guarantees like second and third, which is like 30 points. So it means we'll probably finish on like 75. So, and history speaks as that, you probably need like 70 points to finish in the top 4. So I think that'll pretty much see us off. And hopefully European tour next season.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, let's fingers crossed that you're right. That's what we've been predicting for a few weeks now. I mean, Chris was one of the early ones to say it right at the start of the season. So he's obviously hoping that it's correct as well. But fingers crossed, Amar. And thank you as always. I say thank you as always for sending in questions. But thank you for joining us. Really good to get your opinion. And thank you for filling us all in on a very disappointing game.
Where's the kicking off and all the debate, lads? It was all. No contest whatsoever. I'm disappointed. Nah, I'm kidding. Nah, I love the debate. Love it. It's,
wanted to take it easy on you, mate. Your first time on. Didn't want to damage your ego.
I appreciate that.
Next time you won't have it so nice. There you go.
You didn't say anything to upset me. You need to be mentioning how the cup isn't important.
You could have blamed that result on the cup because we played a team that was too strong, given we had a league game a few days after. There was a nice one teed up for you there.
Yeah, see now that could have kicked things off quite nicely.
Also, you didn't say anything negative about Harvey Barnes, and Jamie's yet to snap this year, but I do feel he's on the cusp.
Oh yeah, completely forgot. Yeah, to be honest,
mate, when it goes as well, it's going to absolutely go. I'm going to murder someone.
Jamie is actually in a romantic relationship with Harvey Barnes, so
he doesn't know it, but yes.
And then in terms of triggering Ed, you didn't say anything negative about Manchester United, so
or Holland.
There's a balance. Neither of which make any sense, but
there we go.
Well, we'll definitely make this happen again. So thanks a lot, mate.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me on, lads.
Take care.
Yeah, you too, lads. Take care.
As always, it's very interesting to get multiple opinions on things. But one thing Amar did say, which I thought would be worth getting your opinion on, guys, is when he said about some of the atmosphere in the stands, because that recent game does seem to have a bit of a polarizing effect on our fan base, and that some fans are definitely pressing the panic button, seeing that like there are vast changes that need to be played, certain players need to be sold, etc. Whereas at the complete other end of the scale, you've got fans saying that actually we can't criticize the team at all, simply because of their performance up until this point. We're third in the league, we're doing this, we're in the League Cup semi-final, etc. Where exactly do you stand on this? Are you somewhere in between, or are you leaning towards one particular of those two camps?
I'm not really sure, because it's just a strange one. Like, when everything's going well, everyone's buzzing, but I'm not sure if every set of football fans is like ours, but we just seem to go toxic so fast. Like, you read threads on like Fox's Talk and everyone's like turning on each other. There's the classic debates about why more people don't sing. It's just like all these things come out of the woodwork. Obviously, we've had a bad run, and it might be like this, all Premier League, all Football League teams, but I literally can't put my finger on why it is like this. Ultimately, it's the players on the pitch. Their performances have dipped, but whether it's the cause or an effect, it just seems really toxic at Leicester when things like this happen, and it's obviously going to reflect on the pitch, especially when we turn on our own players. Like Amar said, that's obviously not going to do him any favours in terms of Chilwell's confidence. So, we don't do ourselves or our players any favours at times like this, I feel.
No, I mean, the Ben Chilwell ones, as you mentioned, are in particularly poor. I mean, you mentioned Fox's Talk. There's a 52-page thread titled Ben Chilwell. So I think that tells you all that you need to know about how he's been perceived recently. But Ed, in terms of the attitude towards him and players like Tielemans and other players that have been a bit underperforming. Where do you stand on sort of how fans should be, because we won't tell anyone how to support a team, but how would you react towards, we made that mistake before, how would you react in terms of, how would you react towards the player, and how do you think that we should be going about it?
Well, I'm more in the camp of you can't really rest on what's happened in the past, and yeah, we are having an absolutely terrific season in both league and cups, but we can't just let people off with underperforming. But of course, that is different thing to if they do underperform, we give them massive stick. That's something obviously I wouldn't agree with. However, I guess it's just the nature of having a young squad. It's like very rare would you have a young squad throughout, not just one or two, but 7, 8, 9 players that are all inexperienced, and they are consistently excellent every single match. There are going to be runs where there's dips in form, and unfortunately for us, we're in one of them. Yes, I think because of that, we do need some rotation in the team, or at least trying something a little bit different. But I don't think that warrants undeserved stick against players. But I guess, I know I've read some people have argued that this is just a sign of, after the amazing few seasons we've had, people are sort of getting these lofty expectations, and I don't even know how to phrase it. Like, I think people are just expecting us to be amazing all the time, when really we're a project, and the project's nowhere near finished. And until we get to that end point, we're not going to be winning games like we were early in the season all year. If we had that form all season, we'd be where Liverpool are now, and Liverpool are doing something that no club has ever done in the Premier League
or in Europe.
Oh yeah, to expect us to be doing that is perhaps pushing it a little bit.
I'm going to look at it from a fan's perspective or a human perspective as well, because sometimes we do forget that, like, emotions are, you can't always control them. And ultimately, if you are frustrated at something, for some reason, being in like a football ground, it's almost like you've got this release, isn't it? And that's not to say it's right or wrong.
Disinhibition. There you go.
Yeah, well, I don't know what that means, but I'll cite an example in the news at the moment. It's obviously the Ollie McBurney thing. I see nothing wrong in that. Obviously, he's giving it the old wanker sign, which, again, as adults, we see that in football grounds all the time. But I guess, is it fair to say that, yes, it's more acceptable if you're doing it at opposition fans or opposition players, but surely we have to draw the line when you do it to your own set of players. Like, that is something you can control, because you have to realise the negative implications of that. Surely if you do it to the opposition, it's to put them off or to goad them or whatever. But I can't find an excuse to vent your own anger at your own players, because surely we're all intelligent enough to realise that there's no positive of that.
No, I mean, I think you can quite clearly see the impact it has on certain players. We all know Tielemans is a confidence player, and because I think that fans, the only times I've ever seen a player booed with good reason.
Do people booing your prawn sandwich seats?
Prawn sandwich? Jesus Christ! I'll let you know it's foie gras. But no, but as in, like, because you see booing when players aren't putting in the effort, right? And I don't think that you can say that the likes of, Tielemans was so frustrated during that Villa game because he was trying so hard. But I almost think he's putting too much pressure on himself. And that is why I just don't get why people do it, because there's no positive that comes from booing players of the team. There just isn't.
Well, I agree with that. And I think the one thing that is sort of argue against my own point that isn't excusable is when you see a player not giving their full effort. And I think the one example I want to refer to is, I was only listening to radio commentary, but it was Perez in terms of shying out of, challenges and stuff. And that's something that does frustrate me, in terms that all you can do as a player, regardless of what quality you are, whether you're me, you or Ed, or a Premier League footballer, we can go out there and give our 100%. Obviously, the quality is going to differ, but if you see players shine out of tackles and stuff like that, then that is inexcusable, isn't it, for me?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I mean, football fans in general just want to see their team putting the effort in. That's one of the reasons why Mark O'Brien is so well loved, because he gives absolutely everything every game. And even if he's not got quite the excitement of, you look at the reaction towards Albrighton and a player like Mahrez at times. Like, Mahrez is obviously a significantly better player. That's no criticism on Albrighton, but
controversial.
I'd say that, well, obviously he's the Brummy Messi, but you know, the perception of Albrighton is more positive at Leicester. But that's just football again. It's a fickle beast. But in terms of those players who didn't particularly perform, I know Amar basically said that he would persist with Chilwell, or he would give him a rest instead of Justin. What do you want to see done going forward then into the next game, which is against Burnley? Do you think that Rodgers will simply make wholesale changes, or do you think he'll just give him a good rest and go again?
I don't think we're going to make. I can't see us making wholesale changes. I don't like. It just doesn't seem like a logical thing to me to be doing that. In terms of our strongest 11, there's obviously a confidence issue, and that's something that Rodgers, if he is truly, I've praised him all season, saying he's one of the best managers around, but this is where he's got to prove his worth now, isn't it? This is what he gets paid massive money for. He's just signed a new contract. He is a manager. Again, just like in any workplace, one of the manager's duties is to motivate his workforce. Whether there's a massive dip in confidence, he needs to isolate why that issue is and needs to work on that. Like you said, we've got all week now. That's the longest period we've had in a long time over the festive period. He needs to get his players down, whether it's on or off the training ground, have a meeting, do anything. There's obviously something going on that's not necessarily performance based, and it's up to him as a manager now. So I'd say start strong 11, but this week has to be about the mental preparation as well for me. Yes,
because I think that most players were underperformed in that game. It wasn't just Chilwell and obviously Tielemans was dropped, but players in that team who have come in for criticism in particular, everyone was under their game. Like Ricardo and Vardy had by far the worst pass completion they've had in ages, and they're such a big part of how we play. So I'm hoping that it is just a case of, because we've played so many games. I mean, since a month ago we played 8 matches, I think. So that's one every 3 days. And we've made not a lot of rotation, have we, in terms of players coming in and out. It was bound to catch up with us, I think.
Well, the results have not been good over that entire period, really. I was looking at it actually. In the last month, we've played 9 matches, but we have only won 4 of them. So that was on the back of that amazing run that we had earlier in the season. So we are certainly in the midst of the testing period. I don't think that can be denied. But again, sort of not to repeat myself, but these kind of things are expected with young players. It's a process, and it's not all going to be perfect. And yeah, we lost a couple of matches back to back, and we're not quite out of that run yet. But hopefully, in the next few, we will. And let's see. In my opinion, I don't think there'll be mass changes for the next game. I'd change some. I think I'd like to see Iheanacho start, mainly because I'm done with Harvey Barnes. I'm just prodding Jamie there. But yeah, I do think I want to see Iheanacho start. I also think we need to bring Tielemans back in, because whilst he hasn't really ever hit the form this season that he was showing whilst on loan, I do think that when it's him and Maddison as both in midfield, we've certainly got more creativity going forward. So yeah, I do think there'll probably be 3 or 4 changes, but
it's an interesting one, isn't it? Could you view picture? I don't know. Even a month ago, was saying that Iheanacho is essentially going to be the confidence player that we need in our team.
I mean, no, you'd have lost a lot of money on that. But I mean, we definitely have to rotate better. I mean, we talk about that trying period that we've come out of, but from Sunday, we play 5 games in about 12 days. And you've got some big games in there. Obviously, you've got the FA Cup away at Brentford, which is, by the way, is going to be no easy game. A semi-final against Villa, where we've definitely not wrapped that up, and we've got a game at home to Chelsea, home to West Ham, and away at Burnley. Like, that's not an easy run.
It's not, and obviously one of the teams you've mentioned is Chelsea, and I think if I'm going to compare us, they've got a young squad in transition as well, and obviously throughout this season they've been caught out on a couple of occasions, and I think I've even mentioned that's probably down to it's a young squad. You know, how do they bounce back from defeats? And as said, Ed says, it could be that, you know, that's why our confidence gets shot so fast, because these are players. We're lacking that experience. We need more people in the dressing room. We're like, look, guys, it's all right. Our quality's still there. Maybe, you know, with the average age being so young, it's we're lacking those sorts of leaders. So maybe that's someone we need to bring in the Cambiasso type in January, just as a short-term fix for confidence, if nothing else.
I mean, yeah, it might be that they are lacking that sort of inspiration to sort of muddle through it when it's not perhaps going as well. I mean, this team has had nothing but plaudits for so long. It'll be interesting to see how they handle a bit of adversity, I guess. But I mean, this horror week, as it were, started on Wednesday night, and which we'll just touch on quickly with the game against Aston Villa. Now, obviously, it didn't quite go how any of us predicted, with a 1-1 draw. But listening to TalkSport, and they were saying that they think Villa, they're favourites to go through now after the way they played. Ed, I mean, I know they didn't exactly go away, but do you still think Leicester are favourites to eventually go through?
Yeah, clear favourites in my opinion. Actually, this may come as a surprise. We didn't beat Aston Villa. It was a draw, but like at no point did I think we weren't going to win that. Like, I didn't see anything in that game to say this team is going to beat us in the reverse fixture. Like, we're in a little bad run of form and aren't finishing our chances, but we still should have won. Like, I didn't see enough from them, and even in this form, I think we should be getting to the final.
I mean, we were either surprised by just how negative Villa were in their play.
I wouldn't say I was surprised. It's like we look at the teams; they didn't have a recognised striker. So, you know, how can you sort of play? I mean, you're playing Jack Grealish in one of 3 positions. For me, he stood out on the day. Controversial comment incoming, klaxon alert. Going against the stats, I actually thought he was better than Maddison. It's the obvious comparison. That's what everyone was looking at. Maddison had a better game in numbers, but there was just something about Grealish. I feel if you put him in a better team, I do think he's capable of playing in the top 4, but that's totally irrelevant to the discussion. But yeah, I think they did set up negative, but I don't think they really had a different option. And ultimately, it worked for them. The keeper had a great game. Mings, you know, defensively solid. But again, our shooting on another day, we could have scored 4 or 5. So it's a mixed bag, really.
I mean, speaking of Grealish, just quickly, I mean, whilst he is definitely a very good player, and I completely agree with you, Chris. I mean, there's one part of his game where he was actually being praised for, which is the number of fouls that he draws. You know, that I suppose the stats people are basically saying that shows how effective he is with his dribbling. But I actually think it made him look like he was made of feathers, because he was constantly trying to buy a free kick, and he just went down so easily. And it's so frustrating, because you do wonder how well he'd do if he actually stayed on his bloody feet.
I see that stat more as a reflection how rubbish Aston Villa are. Like,
do you think he's constantly having to do that?
Yeah, I would say that all the opponents tell their players, take Grealish out and don't worry about the rest. Like, he's if they're going to create something, he's their talisman, and the other players, whilst obviously very good, they're Premier League players, they're not if we play to our game, they're not going to be able to create much against us. So target Grealish, get on him, don't give him time, and we should be able to handle everything else. And that, I don't know, maybe I'm being too simplistic, but that's how I'm seeing that.
I agree with that when they're playing, any team really. But I think in terms of the Leicester game, I think it was purely gamesmanship in terms that he was just buying his own team time. I don't think we were necessarily even targeting him. Like Jamie said, he was going down in terms of he actually wasn't getting touched. So ultimately, he was diving, but he's doing it in clever areas of the pitch where he was facing his own goal. It wasn't in threatening positions, was it? It wasn't in the final third. It was just, giving his team 10, 15 seconds. Obviously, that racks up over a match. So he's a clever player, isn't he? He's one of those players that if he's in your team, you love him, and if you're playing against him, you absolutely hate him.
Yeah, I think it's something that Kane does very, very well. If you're being complimentary about it, in that, like you said, it just buys a bit of time away from being under pressure, because there's no doubt that we had them under the cosh, had them seriously under pressure all game. They were, I think in a large portion of the second half, they didn't actually get out of their half. It was, an extremely frustrating game. But realistically, do you think that they're going to be able to play that way at home in front of their own fans? Are they going to be accepting of that?
No, they're going to have to come out and play, aren't they? It's not acceptable. I don't think the fans would like. You can't set up at home in a semi-final of a League Cup when it's 1-1 and play negative. They're not defending anything. They have to come out and play. And I think if we're going to see any positive for Leicester, that means there are going to be more spaces on the pitch. But if our defence is as frail as it has been recently, then I can see goals for both teams in this one, because yes, the game's going to be more open, but it only takes a moment of magic for someone like Grealish to, and then if they go 1-0 up and it's a confidence game, then it doesn't look good for us, does it?
No, and it certainly doesn't. I think that first goal is extremely important, isn't it? In that point, from that point of view.
Lest we forget, we have already gone away there this season and beat them comprehensively. And like their last match this weekend, I know Man City are excellent, but their statistics for that game at which Villa were home were very similar to the ones when they were away at us in the cup. Like, when they're against a good team like Man City or Leicester, I don't think they're going to have much of the ball and have many chances. I genuinely think, whilst I don't think it will be whatever it was, like 70-75% possession to us away, I certainly wouldn't be surprised if it was like 60% possession and we have 3/4 of the chances. I do expect us still, and obviously I may well be wrong, I thought we'd beat Southampton, for example, but I do expect us to win that. Yeah,
we were much the better side. I know it felt very much like we weren't, perhaps because it was so disappointing, but just for a bit of context, in the second half of that game, the Villa goalie made more passes than any of their other players. That includes Grealish. It was...
Well, they didn't have a corner in the whole match, and that's a rare statistic. As someone who loves a bet on corners, I actually
It's an odd one, actually, because, obviously we were both very disappointed after both those games, but like they were really different performances, the Southampton and Villa. To be fair, you can't really say we did bad against Aston Villa. We completely dominated. We just didn't take the chances that we had.
So let's be honest. To Southampton, they actually played football, though, didn't they? We're Villa.
Some would say we let them. Like we weren't up to. Or I guess what I'm trying to say is we were good against Villa, but ended up being disappointed. But we weren't good against Southampton. Simple as that.
Yeah, which I think is hard to disagree with. I thought, we outplayed Villa, just couldn't quite. We had enough chances to win that game easily, and they had the one. And fair play to them because they took it. But that's the way that we used to play, I guess, at some point. So
let's be honest. They had chance. Well, did they hit the bar? They hit the bar.
Nice.
Southampton. I'm talking about Southampton. Villa hit the bar, didn't they? It was that when Schmeichel comes out and got his centre back or whatever. But
I know that's frustrating though, because that was an absolute just flat by Schmeichel. That was basically where we had. I think that almost came as a result of them scoring the goal, because we'd been so on top, and then it was like a sucker punch, and then they did that pretty much immediately after. But then just didn't get out their own half for 60 minutes, and we had a few. Vardy went close twice. Maddison. I know what you mean. They weren't. They played on the counter. It wasn't like a parking the bus completely, but it is what it. There you go. I mean, so in terms of the formation, again, something that Amar said for the Burnley game, looking ahead, he mentioned that he might want us to play the diamond to try and get Maddison a bit further forward. What do you reckon? Because we played it a couple of times this season with mixed success. Burnley, you pretty much know how they're going to play. How do you want to see us set up?
I think we need to. I'm thinking this is how negative it's got. I'm thinking about how we limit Burnley in how they play, which is traditional 4-4-2, cross the ball into the box to the big men, suggesting to me we need to be a lot more sensible with our fullbacks. I know Amar said that he doesn't rate Fuchs, or that he doesn't rate him anymore, but I certainly think I personally think he offers a lot more defensive stability than Chilwell. And then whether or not you drop Ricardo and play Justin, but whoever plays on each side, they have to be told we're sitting in a bit deeper and we're going to hit them on the counter attack. At least for the first opening half an hour, or whatever, just really tame the game down, because Burnley are going to come out all guns blazing. They're not in any form at all, to be fair. But they've got a traditional record of getting good results at home against bigger teams. So I think, we need to literally go back to basics and limit the crosses and then grow into the game. I didn't think I'd be saying that away at Burnley.
No, limiting the crosses then would suggest you don't want a diamond, as that would mean, well, if it's a diamond, it would be a compact midfield and the width would come from the fullback. So you sort of, in contrast to that, I would argue I would like the diamond, because I want Kelechi and Nacho to start up front with Jamie Vardy.
You think we should play what as a 4-4-2 almost?
Well, with Chowdhury, obviously defensive player, and then Tielemans, I don't know, maybe Pratt, and then Maddison, Vardy, Iheanacho. So you got all the creative players on and the goal scorers, and tell the fullbacks to go for it.
So
get some goals. That's what I'd say.
Just taking the risk. So you're not wary that we could then get broke on, basically.
Yes, I am always wary of that when I'm managing a football side. However, I just think, again, we're better than them, and we should play to our strengths, keeping the ball, creating chances, playing good football, and go for it, really. Like, get a lead and get a couple of goals ahead and then defend it.
Well, it is an interesting one, isn't it? Because it's obviously, you don't want to change the philosophy sort of overnight, but I'd argue that, that's been certain teams' downfall, like Bournemouth, for example. Like Eddie Howe, he built his reputation on playing this expansive sort of game, and playing out from the back, but he's literally getting found out for it. And I think that in our instance, when we're in a rut of confidence, maybe we do have to sort of maybe go a bit back to basics and grind out a couple of 1-0 wins. But again, it's an opinion, and I just away from home as well. Yeah, I don't know. I'd be a bit more cautious if I was to give the team talk.
What would you do, Jamie?
I actually think that I would quite like us to stick with the 4-3-3, but push Maddison further forward. I'd have Pratt and Chowdhury in the middle. I actually, Dennis Pratt, I think, is one of the only players that apparently came out with any real credit from the game of the weekend. And I think he's been quite impressive. He's surprisingly quick as well, you've got to say. But I'd like that. You want to get Maddison further up, get him more on the ball. I think the system works with him in the 8 role, as it were. But I want to see him playing as a 10. Be positive and get on the front foot, because I mean the midfield that you're going up against is likely to be Cork, Westwood, and Hendrick. And with the greatest respect to those players, especially Jack Cork, who I always used to rate, I think that we should be able to win that battle, and then hopefully get your wingers on the ball and get them playing with a bit of freedom again, because that is where we've been falling down. So
you saying you'd want Tillemans to stay on the bench?
Either Tillemans or Pratt. I'd be happy with either of them after a week's rest. I think Pratt probably deserves to start. It showed in the previous game. I think we have to start with Chowdhury on the pitch. I know he was poor against Southampton, but I'm not writing him off after one game. You need that holding presence, don't you?
I think it's something Amar, you brought some great points in, is that Ndidi's like personified. He's calm. Chowdhury, he is rash, and I think it was in like the last minute against Southampton. He sort of slid tackle, almost took his own player out, and led to a chance for Southampton. He obviously that is down to experience, but like he is a defensive mid, but I think he needs to use it a lot more wisely, because it's a bit of a ticking time bomb, I feel.
I think it's more the sort of the timing of his press, isn't it? In that indeed he knows exactly when to press them and when to stand them up, whereas Chowdhury's a bit more all action, and he will get it wrong. He is learning still, isn't he? I think it's fair to say indeed he's a much more accomplished player in that position. But I would like to see him given another go. I think that it's early to say that he's not there yet, isn't it? But if we play well, we can certainly beat them, can't we? I mean, it's a game that we should be winning. But on that note, I suppose we may as well do a prediction. So assuming Leicester, obviously, we've got a nice rest. Players are definitely going to need to pick the game up. But how do you see it going then, guys? What put your neck on the line? Hopefully, we can be a bit more accurate with these ones.
I'm going to stick with what I said last week. 2-1 Leicester. I think I'll still be positive in terms of the outcome. But I think it is going to be. It's literally going to be Burnley away, and exactly how you want to portray that. It's not. I don't see it being a pretty game at all. But a win will be nice. So 2-1.
It would be very nice. Ed,
I will go for 2-0.
2-0. This might be one of the first times you've been more ambitious than Chris.
Yeah, well, there you go. I just think that I don't rate them. They've just lost 3-0 to Chelsea, who haven't been in the greatest form. I think we're better than Chelsea. I think we'll keep the ball. We'll create more chances. With our strikers, even if we don't create loads of chances, we still have, Vardy will have, as he does every game, 1, 2, maybe even 3 really good opportunities with a guy as clinical as him. You fancy him to score, so a couple of goals to 0 for me.
I would certainly like to see that. I think he'll be, well, Burnley, you know how they're going to play. They're going to try and make it a bit cagier, and make it difficult for us. But I think if we can get our game going, I'm really placing a lot of emphasis on this rest. I'm not sure if that's out of hope more than expectation that is what is going to magically turn us back into this all-conquering side. But let's be optimistic. I think it'll be 1 or 2-0. Incidentally, I think last game was the first time that Vardy hasn't managed a shot all game.
Didn't fancy it.
No, he obviously had his assist and thought, I'm done now. I think he'll score. He's too good not to. So look, fingers crossed. So 3 wins across the board then, which is always nice. It certainly would cheer us all up, wouldn't it? But right, so as always, we ask for questions every week. One of which I think we have already answered, which is what do we need to do to get back on track against Burnley, which came in from our friend Austin Forbes. Austin is one of a few of you from the US who got in touch to tell us where you're all listening from. Austin, I believe, was South Carolina. Thank you to everyone that did. It absolutely blows my mind that people in the US are finding us interesting and taking the time to listen. So thank you to all of you who got in touch from there was Indiana, Ohio, South Carolina, in all of these places that I'm assuming are nowhere near each other in the US. in terms of other questions, one particularly tricky one, which is a real chin scratcher, which came in from Rich Kinnaird. If you could change any result but had to swap it with another, i.e. you can beat Man City, but then you have to sacrifice the 5-0 win against Newcastle, what result would you change and why? If you can, try and make the change like for like. So you can't change a 1-0 victory for a massive win against Liverpool.
I can give you the most boring answer, and then we can perhaps add some more interesting ones to it.
That is what we're doing. We are looking for boring answers on this podcast.
Yeah.
It's almost to sit on the fence, isn't it? I'm doing that for you, Rich. It's your question. I'm going to push him with that metaphorical gun to his head, like you instructed me to.
I would swap the Wolves result for the Southampton result. Wolves being the first game of the season. I just think we need a better result now than losing to bounce back and get back to winning ways. So well, actually, we didn't even beat Wolves. The first win of the season, I'd take that out and exchange that for a win in the last game, purely because I think we need that momentum and that confidence back rather than anything else.
I'm going to play devil's advocate, to use your phrase.
That's offensive.
Are you not tempted to say you'd have knocked us out in the cup? Very early?
Here we go.
Well, was the question relating to a league match or any game?
Any game you want.
Well, yeah, I would. Okay, then easier. I would lose against not Aston Villa. I would have lost against Wigan and beat Southampton.
So well, you're saying FA Cup. Would you not tempted to maybe knock us out against, I don't know, Newcastle in the League Cup all the way?
If we're playing full silly games, I would have put the under-12s out against Wigan and accepted defeat there and beat Southampton. But,
so you think the Wigan game, because obviously multiple changes, so you do think that did contribute?
Yeah, we've all said, or at least a few of us in this very podcast, that we've had loads of games recently and it was going to take its toll on us. And we've also said in previous podcasts that one of the benefits for Leicester this season is that we've got less games. So it could be argued, if we're following this line of reasoning, that we could sacrifice a cup game for winning the league. So we would obviously be doing better in the league, but I've chosen the FA Cup because of how well we've done in the League Cup, that I wouldn't want to sacrifice the chance of going to Wembley, whereas a game against Wigan, which wasn't exactly the most exciting tie anyway, like that yeah, I would actually change that. Yeah,
well,
lose to Wigan, beat Southampton.
You'd rather lose, obviously, an early round. There's more like heartbreak, etc. And romanticism, obviously, the further you go into a competition. So I can actually agree with you, Ed. We'll need to soundbite that, because I rarely say that.
I've got a tear going down my face.
But in terms of Rich, I'm going to talk to you directly. I am literally scratching my chin/head. Studying the games, it's a very difficult question. I don't like.
I'll tell you a game you really didn't like that we lost, that you could perhaps consider. You didn't like when we lost against Man U because you thought we played the wrong way and paid them too much respect.
I know, and I
did. You hate Man U.
But then I'm saying, what would I swap that for? Because Man United are that far off the pace now.
They're fifth.
Yeah, that far off the pace now. Mathematically, I'm saying if I gift them that win, that puts me even closer. So again, I'm agreeing with you here.
But then you would get a win elsewhere.
Yeah, true. Actually, it's me just not understanding the question, isn't it? I don't know. I think I'll answer your question partly in the way that I disagree. I think that us staying in the League Cup was a good idea, but yeah, maybe. But then again, bombing out to Wigan, even if it is a totally changed 11, it can't be good for confidence. So there's no automatic guarantee that if we lost that it would have had a positive effect on the team. So it's a good question, but I cannot answer it.
Yeah, but the results stay the same since. So even if we lost to Wigan, we'd still drew with Villa, and we would have beat Southampton.
Yeah, but you know what people are like, and yeah, this is a hypothetical. I'm not actually answering the question 100%, but people would have been
You
like,
mean this can't happen? We can't actually change it.
But people would have been like, oh, but we lost to Wigan. That wouldn't. You know what, football fans? You know what we're like? We're fickle. Like, we'd have blamed losing to someone because we lost to Wigan. Like, it's a tricky one. Looking at the games we've lost to teams that we probably should have, lost to this season. We've beaten 95% of the teams that we should be beating. It's just whether we can sustain that in the second period of the season, which is, well, something we struggled with, obviously losing to Southampton. So to tie the whole question up in regards to what we discussed last week or the week before, is that maybe we won't be able to mirror the first half of the season, and I'll be in my...
Someone should have predicted that.
Well, you didn't though, didn't you? You said we're going to end up in the top four. So I'd say if we have such a bad... If we lose to teams like Southampton more often, we are at heavy risk of dropping out of the top four. But I don't know.
Jamie, which result would you change? If any?
I would swap the Man U and the Southampton away results. Imagine beating Man U 9-0 away. Like,
oh, so you can change the scores as well.
Why not? Fuck it.
I think Richie's going to be atting you tomorrow because that is not a fair swap.
Maybe. Well, look, maybe I've misinterpreted his question. Maybe willfully misinterpreted.
I think you found a loophole in it.
He did say it has to be a like for like change.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a real shame. Because...
Would you take this though? We beat Man U away at the start of the season, which is a big coup. But what about if we lost 1-0 to Southampton?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'd take them doing the double over us to have won that game, because it was, especially at that time, we were doing pretty well. We'd started the season really well, and it really felt like we had that chance to go out and put our authority on the league, and we just bottled it, didn't we? So I think that's probably one of the most regretful performances I think we put in. If that's
if you want another boring answer, here's one.
I'm sure everyone listening.
Imagine. Would you swap the both two Southampton results around?
Well, beat them 9-0 at home.
Yeah.
I think I'm just happy with the fact we won 9-0.
That was a good result.
I'll say no, I wouldn't, because that wouldn't have been a record, would it? Whereas that is the biggest away win.
True. And obviously we went and watched that in the pub, no one expecting that to come at all, and it was
very true, actually, very true.
Yes.
It might have saved me the next morning, but that was that was a very, very good question. Thank you for that one.
Certainly
Rick.
A chin scratcher.
It's definitely a chin scratcher. Please at Ed if you've got any complaints about it. Right, so last question that came in was from Ben Sercombe, who basically asked what we were thinking transfers wise. But one name he suggested was Harry Wilson, who is of course on loan at Bournemouth from
Liverpool.
I knew that. And would he fit our system? So in terms of transfer updates, there's no real news, is there? Apart from that Leicester are out of the running for that Demiral from Juventus after he suffered a season-ending injury. But Chris, what do you think about Harry Wilson? Do you think he's the sort of player that would suit us?
He'd suit us, but we don't need him. Like, if we're going to go out in January and do some business, we need to do it to
business.
Get people, players, acquire some players that, like a wide man, I don't know, even a centre back. We don't need any more of these creative types. Like, he's a good player. It's whether or not I see him ever getting into the Liverpool team. To be fair, Liverpool are pretty light in midfield. I know it's an ironic thing to say, but that's where you'd improve them as well. But no, I won't go for Harry Wilson. One, because he's going to have a massive price tag, and two, because we need to prioritise areas we need. And I'm going to say they're wide players, a creative, more of a winger type.
Yeah, which I would agree with. I mean, there's been a number of names bandied round. Ed, what do you reckon? Is there anyone that you'd like to see us go on?
On Harry Wilson, I think he's just like another potential player. I feel like if I was adding another player to this squad, I'd probably be looking for some more experience. Like you guys have already touched on this pod. We're sort of lacking that now, as well as someone in a positional sense out wide. So, yeah, whilst Wilson, sure he can play there, and he might put in some lots of good performances like some of our wide men, we need someone who's a bit more seasoned and perhaps more consistent. So I wouldn't be looking at him. I guess one player I mentioned a few weeks ago when we're on about wide men we'd be interested in, I said Delafeu, but now, I don't know, Watford are slowly turning things round. Maybe he'd be more open to staying there. I don't know. I'd also imagine he'd cost mega bucks from a side in a relegation scrap, because another season in the Premier League for anyone who's down there now it's hard to put a sensible price on that.
Do you think, I mean, because obviously I know we're saying that we would like another wide man because that's where we're necessarily struggling a bit, but do you think it's important that Leicester don't let this opportunity slip and that they actually think, right, we're third in the league, we've got an exceptional opportunity here, we need to try and make the most of it now and spend a bit of money?
Yeah, I think in a perverse way, and I've seen other people say it as well, that the last two results really may actually sort of propel Leicester owners, people who would, whoever does the transfer dealing, perhaps to, speed up the process and actually make moves that before there may have been and ahhing about. But now after a couple of results, they're thinking actually we do need something now. And we do need to consolidate where we are because, even though it's only a small chance given the healthy lead we've got over us in the league, if we do let this drop, we'll look back and we will say, we're in a bit of a rut in January. We had the chance to consolidate this, add to the squad, not just stay where we are, but actually improve as a team, and we didn't take it. And I don't know, there's a lot of money riding on this, and I do think we'll sign someone this month, is my prediction. There you go.
I think
here first.
Yeah, I thought you almost made a full U-turn then. I thought you plug in that we're going to do a big money transfer. I do actually think that I've got a motion detection radar thing going off that. I think we're going to go big with someone this January. With one eye on potential European football. It could be from not struggling, but the team that doesn't look like they're going to qualify for Europe next year. So maybe, I don't know, looking at teams like AC Milan, I don't know, something like that. I just do think that we're going to probably, with one eye on potential Champions League football, try and bolster our squad with a big name. Someone that I literally don't know anything about this season, and I won't be able to pronounce his name. Who's that Turkish guy who takes like
Soyuncu?
No, who does very good free kicks.
Probably. Oh no, Calhanoglu.
Emre.
Yeah.
Hakan Calhanoglu.
Yes. I've got no idea if he even still if what he's doing nowadays. And I think I did see an article linked earlier in the season, but someone like that basically is what I'm getting at. Someone who is good, has played at European football and can still do something. I'd just see someone like that coming in this January.
You're right. We were linked with him in December for a rumoured 50 million euros. But I think he's still quite young, actually. He's one of those that feels like he's been around for ages. He's only 25. And it's Nicolo Shearer, who's been... Shearer spelled Schira, not like Alan
Shearer.
But he's the guy who's broken a couple before. And I think it's basically it was only an inquiry. But most AC Milan fans who commented on socials basically seemed thrilled that we were bidding for him, which is never
Similar to Tielemans, though. Similar to Tielemans, he was well out of favour. It's just like anything.
Yeah,
like player rights. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. But you're right in terms of having an out and out creative player with European pedigree. I mean, it's something that we don't have at the minute in terms of we've got players perhaps of that ilk, but not many with the experience of playing in that competition. I think Tielemans is probably our most experienced Champions League player.
Johnny Evans is my prediction.
Johnny Evans, yes, of course. I always forget about him. Just so busy going under the radar, isn't he?
No. Just think before you speak, yeah.
Wow. Right, Ed.
I have got some live transfer news for you.
There it is.
A piece of news has just broken.
Weird.
In the Sun.
Okay.
You may not, some people have their opinions on this outlet. However, I can inform you this rumour is not linking to a player who's experienced, nor have they got any international pedigree. It is, in fact, a 16-year-old Danish wonder kid dubbed the next Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Apparently, Leicester have had £1 million bid rejected by... I'm not even going to pretend I know how to pronounce that.
I'll go in now.
You've got to try.
I can't do
it.
Stop Googling the phonetic spelling of it.
I wouldn't even know how to do that anyway. The club looks like Vegel Bold Club.
That sounds like something you can buy at IKEA.
Yeah, that's a 4-piece sofa.
Yeah.
If anyone from Denmark is listening, please tell us just how wrong that was.
It's not the wrong country as well, because IKEA is, of course, Swedish, isn't it?
Terrible racism.
I know.
Guys are better. But yeah, apparently he is a wonder kid who is 16. Reports are coming from Denmark.
I mean, how can you be dubbed as Zlatan? Is he tall? Is he what makes him like Zlatan?
He hasn't made a first team appearance, so I don't think he's going to change our fortune this season.
He'll be straight into not even under 23s, would he? That's literally like a regen on Football Manager.
He's doing well for Bold Club youth team, so
wow. That's
for Raul Uche, or however you pronounce the youth player who left the under 23s this week.
I read that this player is likened to Ibrahimovic because of his similar build and characteristics to the young Ibrahimovic, which means that he's quite tall and probably a bit of an arse. If that's what they're on about.
Sounds like Nicholas Bentner.
Oh, what a man! In terms of other outgoings, and one more player that has been linked with a move away is a player that is already away in Islam Slimani, but apparently Aston Villa are keen. Why? I mean, say if we were going to sell him on a permanent, how much money do you think we could get for him?
12.5 mil.
I think you would be lucky to get 10.
Yeah, but in real, this is the modern day, isn't it? I mean, you're not going to get him. He's not going to go for £500,000.
Slimani, 31, nearly 32. I was doing a bit of research actually. He's just fallen out of favour at Monaco, where he had actually been doing quite well. Aston Villa as a striker, as we already know. If they're interested and they do make a bid, I could, to be honest, see that happening. Even when he was at Leicester, he never pulled up trees, but I feel that was more a reflection of he didn't fit our style in the slightest, and he was never going to play ahead of Vardy, so he wasn't going to get the game time he probably could have. Maybe he could do something at another Premier League club, I don't know.
Could be Benteke version 2.0 in his Villa time. Was he any good at Villa?
I think he was quite good at Villa, wasn't he?
Yeah, I was going to say so.
Benteke?
Yeah.
Well, wasn't that where he went to Liverpool from?
Yeah, so I'm saying that was it. It could have been his golden years.
He got a goal every other game for Aston Villa.
Exactly. Now Islam could be replicating it.
Well, hopefully not against us, lads.
Mate, top banter.
Imagine that. Wow.
Oh, God. Right, on that note, is that a bit of a depressing note to leave it on? I think we might have to, though, won't we? Because just before Ed gets any more out of his box and tells me off again.
Come on, we've all had a hot chocolate.
Right, well, listen, if you made it this far, as always, thank you, especially for sitting through Ed's nonsense. Please do subscribe on all major podcast providers. New podcast. We're getting pretty regular with this. It tends to be every Tuesday. We love to hear feedback, or even just people getting in touch to tell us where you are in the world. Whether it be bloody Nottingham or South Carolina, please do get in touch. Positive feedback to me and Chris. Obviously, any abuse, please direct it to Ed. But thank you again.
You can find me on Twitter at Christian Mosen.
Idiot. Right, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.